the talk shows Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I'm with Amanda and Nick. Amanda, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Cottrell. I am a teacher, an author, an illustrator, and I am the founder of Art Mindfulness and Creativity. And I have a mission to build a global community of empowered creators who embrace their passions and natural curiosities to make the world a better place one day at a time. Nick?
Hello. So my name is Nick, and I am the founder of a clothing brand called Flow State Designs, which is based in Alberta in Canada. And our mission is to bring natural fiber clothing and locally made clothing back to Canada. And before that, I was a police officer for 17 years. And when that job had run its course and it was no longer in alignment for me, I decided to go all in on my passion, which is fashion. So here I am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. So, our topic today is what are your patterns and how to shift? How do you shift them? And I'm going to let Amanda explain the topic to our audience because she chose this topic. And over to you, Amanda, please.
Well, I picked this topic because I'm actually running a course starting in September, and it's called Empower Your Life. And this topic is one of the topics that we're going to cover throughout the course. So there's 14 weeks in the course, and there's 14 different topics throughout. And so this ability to shift it, to do this is why I picked the topic. So I'm excited about it. Nick, what do you think about the topic so far?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because up until recently, I was completely unaware of all the patterns that basically ran my life up until now. And in the last couple of years, I've come to discover some of my patterns and have started to shift the negative ones to more positive ones and reinforce the positive ones. So this is something that a process I'm going through currently.
Yeah, taking it, like even just recognizing our patterns is so important. Like when you start to become aware of it, when you start to realize like, oh, that's my pattern, that's why I always do that. Like they say, even like you put your like, if you start to become aware of it, you'll always put your same leg into your pants every single morning when you put your pants on. And it's like these patterns that we've grown up with, and they're patterns that are really hard to break because it's like passed down from generation to generation to generation. And until we become consciously aware of it, we don't even recognize that we are doing these patterns. And it could be the mental self-talk, right? Or like certain being anxious about certain things. And there's studies on rats even that show that it's 7 generations above, like after the one rat experiences a trauma, it will um pass that genetic like fear on for 7 generations, even though those other rats haven't experienced that fear. And so it's really, really interesting to recognize. And I've been researching this stuff for like 11 years. And essentially we are, so much of our patterns are picked up from our from previous generations. And so if we want to break those patterns, we need to first become aware of them and then replace them with something else, because you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to stop that pattern, because you'll just keep doing it. Like you'll maybe stop it for a few days, but then you'll fall back into your old ways and just keep repeating the pattern. But in order to really change a pattern, you have to replace it with something else and be really conscious and motivated to shift that pattern. What do you think, Nomsa?
I actually love this topic. There's a pastor that I do follow on YouTube. It's so good. Basically, it says just look at look at your grandparents, their patterns, how they did things, and then it says look at your parents, the good patterns, and then the bad ones, and then it says break the bad ones. And when you look at your ancestors, look at your life as well. Are you following those patterns yourself as well? And I'll be like looking at it, I'm like, yeah, actually I'm doing what my father used to do, or I'm doing what my mother used to do. So then he will be like, you have to break those patterns. So that's what I basically do. I look at the patterns the bad habits that I do, that I inherited from my family. And then I look at my family, their lifestyle, how they lead their lives. And basically when it comes to wealth, and I look at poverty as well. And then I break all those chains. So I think it's a very, very good topic, because sometimes some people, when they recognize the bad patterns, they actually make themselves wrong. But you don't have to make yourself wrong. If you recognize your pattern, that is a new start where you can actually realize, actually I'm unique, and then work on those bad patterns and develop the skills of your good patterns, because we learn from the patterns, those bad patterns, we learn from them so we don't repeat from them. It's like Nick, when you talk about how you used to be, like in your workplace, basically you never used to speak up. And when I watch your YouTube channel, like your YouTube video that went viral, and I'm like, this is so completely different, that sometimes you do things for years, and then basically your intuition goes, that's not who I am, this is who I am. So and then the real you and comes out, and then it's up to us to either accept it. But you accepted your life completely, Nick, and you are now completely doing something completely different, walking away from the life that you've built for years. So I actually thank you so much, Amanda, for this topic. It's really amazing. Yeah, it's really amazing. I'll give over to
I
Amanda.
have a question for you guys. Is there any patterns that you've had to consciously break that have been passed down from generation to generation? Because I know for myself, there's two. Like if you look at people in with their families, like if your parents went to university, you probably went to university, and then and got higher education. And so no one in my family essentially had gone to higher education except one of my cousins when I went to university. And I ended up getting 3 university degrees because I wanted to break that pattern of not being educated in my family. And so I'm essentially, well, my one cousin ended up going back, and she also has a master's degree now as well. We both have education master's degrees, but she's actually like 15 years older than me, but she ended up going back and getting her master's after I did. But we were like the first people in our extended family ever to go and get a master's degree, and I was the first and the youngest. But essentially there's other patterns that I've had to break too, like everyone in my family, like in any social situation, there's alcohol. There's always alcohol, no matter what. There's alcohol in the morning at Christmas. There's alcohol in your coffee, like always alcohol, no matter what. And so when my daughter was 3 years old, I decided I wanted to completely break that pattern. I didn't want alcohol in my house. I didn't want, if like people brought it over for a night or whatever, that was fine, but there would be no alcohol in my house on a regular basis. And so, and I wasn't going to drink. I was like, people can drink, I don't care, but I want to break this pattern for my daughter, because I don't want her to grow up thinking that in order to have fun, you have to have alcohol there. And essentially that is the like brainwashing that that pattern that was brought down from generation to generation to generation to generation in my family. Every single one of my grandma's brothers died of alcoholism. And so, and yet still other people in my family don't recognize that this is a problem. And so essentially that was something that I was like, nope, I want to make sure no matter what that I break this pattern for my daughter. I want her to know that you can have fun without alcohol. If you want to drink a little bit, it doesn't matter to me, but I want her to know that you have a different choice. And essentially changing this pattern also had issues for other people, because I would go to parties, and if I wasn't drinking, people that didn't know me would be like uncomfortable. They'd be like, "Why aren't you drinking?" and I would and so eventually I learned that I would just bring drinks that looked like alcohol drinks, and then no one would bug me. But I was able to like easily break that pattern, and people would be like, as long as it looked like an alcohol drink, no one would ask me any questions or like be like, "Oh, come on, you have to party with us." And as long all my friends that I'm close with knew that I wasn't that I had quit drinking like years ago. It's been like 9 or 10 years now, but um essentially I had to change that pattern, but then I also had to like not only change the pattern for me, but somehow still fit into society and not complete like I didn't want to like quit hanging out with my friends or anything, because I didn't was never a big drinker. But in order to make other people comfortable, I have to always have it in a like social or situation that where there's alcohol. For the most part, I have to have a drink in my hand. It's probably just water, or maybe it's bubbly or something, but as long as I have a drink in my hand, no one gets on my case. But it's so interesting to watch those patterns and to watch what societal views as acceptable in certain social situations. And so I really think that we should break that pattern of making people feel like they have to drink in order to have fun, because that's not true. But that's something that was like ingrained subconsciously in my mind for so long, and I'd even been told that it by people, and it's really not true. And we need to like break some of those stigmas against certain things as well. Or and I think that that's something that's really important. So I'm curious if there's any like patterns from your that have been passed down from generations that you've had to break through.
For me, a couple come to mind, and yeah, I'd like to touch on the drinking thing too, just quickly, actually, before I get into my pattern. In coming from a law enforcement background, the damage that alcohol causes in our society is astronomical. I can't even imagine like to put a number on it or like a percentage of calls that involve alcohol, but it's crazy high. And the families it touches, the kids that it hurts, and it's so pervasive in our society. And yeah, you're exactly right. It's coffee with the Irish cream. It's the mimosa or whatever it is. It's always alcohol related, and you see it in advertising. So we're getting it not only from our families, but we're getting it externally as well through social media and advertising and everything. And it's not good for anyone for sure. So anyways, I'll leave that and get back to my own patterns here. So for me, a big one that I've identified and now have been able to shift was being judgmental. So growing up, we would go to family get-togethers, Christmas, whatever it was, and then we would generally they were day trips. So then we would drive home as just my parents and my brother and I, and we would just talk trash about our family like the whole way home. It would just be like, did you see what that person was wearing, or did you hear what that guy said, or like it was just a nonstop just judgment session, the drive home my entire childhood. And then so fast forward, so about 5 years ago, I was still in policing. I was talking to a person that I worked with who I actually really respected, and we were chatting about whatever it was, and he told me, he said, Nick, did you know that you're the most judgmental person that I know? And at the time, I was actually proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm judgmental. Like everybody else sucks and I'm awesome. But that's where I was at that time. Just so, okay. So 5 years ago, so I was working in policing. Like I said, I was really unhappy in life in general. So for me, I was I was stuck in, well, a lot of patterns that we have in society. And so that's you need to have the big house and the 2 new cars, and you need to have the RV and all of those things. And so I was so stuck up in like that consumerism side of things. I thought that was what was going to make me happy in my life, was having all of the things and doing all of the activities that everybody else in society did, and kind of basing my happiness around all of that. And then, so since then, I identified that through my spiritual awakening and then journey, that, well, being judgmental is like the worst, and the worst thing you could be doing, and one of the like lowest vibration activities I could partake in. And so just naturally through my kind of evolution, I'm now at a point where I'm like completely opposite of how I was 5 years ago. So now when people go to that place of, talking trash or talking about different people and being judgmental, it like just feels terrible, like inside. And I just like, I'm trying to find creative ways to like, shift the conversation back to like something that's not so low vibe. So that was something that, well, I identified in my life, well, had it, I guess, pointed out to me by someone I respected. And then beyond that, it took me a few years to identify that that was actually a bad thing, and then to shift it. But yeah, I think that identification is huge, being aware that that's something you do. And then for me, it was just sort of a natural progression, I guess, to stop doing it, because it just felt so bad to me. So that's definitely one pattern that came to mind when I thought of this topic.
Thank you so much, Nick and Amanda. So for me, the pattern that I had to break is my mom. My mom was the only child. Her siblings, her uncles, her daddy's uncles, all of them, their children are married. So my mom was the only child between her siblings that she was married. So she had to sit her siblings down to say, we need to break this pattern where you guys, you have children and you don't get married. You do everything as living together, not married. So she had to speak to her siblings that they need to break this pattern, because her parents, my grandmother wasn't married. Her marriage broke down. She didn't get married again. So she said, she explained to them that they need to break that pattern where they live with men and not married. So now they broke that pattern. So now all my mom's siblings are married. But it was something that they had to discuss with us. My mama had to discuss with us that I have spoken to my siblings and I have made them aware that generation to generation, if that things become normal, it can affect the children. So they did that. They have to break that thing. And then when it comes to university, Amanda, you were talking about university. My great grandfather has 5 kids. He's a 5 or 6, and all of his children are educated. They went to university. And then it comes to us, our generation. Me, I left school. I didn't go to university. I left school in Africa, and then I came to United Kingdom, and everyone else started copying me, traveling. But for me, it was a choice, because I was an old child within the family. So I said to my dad, I just want to travel. I don't want to go to uni. Maybe I'll go to university later. I don't know. So I lived with my family. My family let me be the person that I wanted. But my siblings started copying me as well. They started traveling. And then I went to university. When I came to the UK, I have a degree. But my siblings, one of my siblings has went to to college. So now that I'm listening to this pastor, that you have to look at the patterns of your parents. And also there's broken marriage in my family, that the marriages don't last. They get married, but then the marriage breaks down. So I was like, okay, this is something that we need to break. So I had to go through. It didn't go well. So when I when I had to go through prayers as a Christian and trying to break those soul ties, because those are the chains, they are soul ties that they basically get to be tied to within the family. They become a problem within the family. So I had to break them, but it didn't go well, which is nearly cost me my life, because I went deep basically to generation after generation, breaking the chains. And I got in trouble. But I did sort it out in the end. I got in trouble with that. That's when we talk about God, I didn't realize that actually when we create problems to generational problems, you get to go to another kingdom of that sins, or the sins of not living without marriage and things like that. I didn't know. I just read the Bible and thought it was funny, but it's not fun. I got in trouble, but I got myself out of those trouble, because I was like, I was asked, like, basically there was a spirit that came in and say, who do you think you are? We've been your family. They've been serving us for years, and now you want to change things. So I was like, okay, I ended up with the battles, fighting the battles, but I managed to go through those battles. But those are the patterns that marriage, my family, and the university in my family, and also the what I've realized as well, Amanda, what was Nick, was like, my family were very, very close. My father's generation were very, very close family. And our generation, we were basically starting to split, starting basically so many things, until one of the pastors, he prayed for me, and he was like, I didn't know he was a prophet, and he goes, you know what you need to do. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, you need to put your family together, bring your family together. So I was like, what is he talking about? And then the following week he said the same thing, you need to bring your family together. So I realized then that my family were very, very, very close. So I just set up a group. So I've managed to put my family, the entire our generation in my bloodline, I've managed to put them back to where they are meant to be, by just setting up a group and aiding everybody, and just talking about the importance of the bloodline, and the importance of how important it is to be united, to stay in unity. So I've managed to do that. My family basically now, when they're doing it together, the things like they do get together, and they'll be like telling each other that if Nomsa finds out this is what you're doing, you will be in trouble. So those are the things that I've realized, the patterns that our father's generation were very, very close. We come from a very, very close family. And then our generation, we started a little bit of fighting, a little bit of basically splitting up, but I managed to put them together. I'm still doing the work, though. I know it's gonna be a very, very hard work. So I'm still doing the work with my family, just to basically to show them the importance of the bloodline, what it means, like my surname, what it means to be Ncube, what does it mean? The importance of my mother's family name, what it means. So it means we are basically friends by choice, but we are family by blood. So that's what I'm working on. And my family, sometimes they're like, Nomsa, you're too hard on us. I'm like, okay, we need to get on with life. So those are the things that I'm working on at the moment. I know it's going to be a long journey to make sure to bring my family together, and to understand, like Nikki, you're talking about judgmental. And basically, I'm trying to teach them that we don't have to judge each other, but we can get along and accept each other, our differences, and embrace that difference, embrace that even if someone is not doing well in the family, you don't have to laugh at them. You don't have show them how you are able to succeed in life instead of laughing, because some people laugh when people are in poverty and they're doing well. They laugh at each other. So I'm trying to teach my family, we are blood, we don't have to laugh at our blood. So it is a long journey. Wish me luck on that one. Over to you, Amanda.
I want to touch what Nick said about that like criticizing piece, because I was laughing to myself because I could just like picture the four of you in the car, like just like bashing people as you drive. And I was laughing to myself because I could just like picture it. But it's so true. And that brought up some things about my life, and that criticism piece is so like ingrained almost into like that's just what you do. And essentially that's something that like I've been really consciously trying to change, because one of those things passed down to me was like they always see the negative in everything. Like it'll be like, oh, the weather, oh, the weather's supposed to be terrible. Did you, no matter how hot it is or how cold it is, or like if it's going to rain, it's like, no, we can't do that, the weather. And I'm like, oh my God. So like I remember this one time I was going on a hike and I had my daughter, and I was like, I'm going on a hike, and one member of my family was like, well, you know, it's supposed to rain. And I was like, don't care. I'm still going hiking. I'm like, you can, I didn't even look at the weather. I was just like, I'm going. This is what I'm doing today. And it drizzled a little bit, but we did a hike and it was awesome. And then and with my daughter, she was like 3 years old. I honestly didn't even look at the weather, but that was something that this other member of my family, the first thing they did was look at the weather and told me all of the reasons why I shouldn't be going. And then I was like, it's literally your choice. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, don't. And they ended up coming and complaining about the weather the whole time. But at the same time, I just also realized like those aren't people that I want to surround myself with. And that's something, that's a pattern that you have to break, is if you're continuously surrounding yourself with people who are bringing up those feelings of anxiety and bringing up those like constant criticisms, and you're trying to find a way to like creatively get out of it, it's it's hard sometimes. And sometimes you just have to like cut those ties, because without that, that pattern will just continue and continue and continue. And I told my pattern of the alcohol, and I was never an alcoholic, so I can still be in situations where there's alcohol and not drink and be fine. But if you have substance problems, you probably can't go into that situation and still be okay, right? You'll have to completely shift your life into hanging out in situations that don't involve alcohol. For me to shift that pattern, it was really easy for me because I didn't have a substance abuse problem. But people who do, in order to change like your substance problem, you have to completely like decide to shift a bunch of things. And I was talking with a friend who had substance problems, and I was asking him about like when they go away to a treatment center or something, and if that helps. And they were like, yeah, it helps while you're there, but as soon as you go back into your situation, like back into real life, you fall right back into that pattern right away, unless you can choose, and it has to be a conscious thought to like completely uproot it, your life, move, and like remove yourself from those people that were causing that pattern. And they were like, that's essentially what I had to do in order to overcome my addiction problem. And I, because right now somebody else in his life has an addiction problem, and I was like, why don't they just do like go to a retreat center or something? And he was like, it doesn't work, because you have to like uproot your life, and you have to be ready to uproot your life in order to do this. And in order to break patterns, you have to be really ready to like come up against some mental blocks and some blocks that are generational. And one person talks on the thing, says tell about love, and I think there's lots of patterns that we go into that are learned when it comes to love as well. And so people feel love in different ways, and part of the way that you feel love might look different for different people. And I don't know if anybody's read the 5 love languages, but essentially certain people feel love in certain ways, and that's probably passed down generationally. And unless you actually recognize what your love languages are, and if you recognize what your partner's love languages are, you might be like butting heads constantly until you start to understand that. So that's one really good book on love and patterns that I think is really, really important to read. The other one that I think is really, really important to read is called Attached. And it talks about anxious versus avoidant attachment styles, and then secure as well. And sometimes you can be either extreme avoidant or anxious. And like having different types of partners will cause different patterns to emerge. So if you're an anxious person and you end up with an avoidant person, which quite often happens, the avoidant person will spike this person's anxiety. But if the anxious and avoidant if a person with anxiety meets a secure person, those anxious tendencies will actually fade away because their needs will be met. Because if they go into an anxious flight, they're not the secure partner is going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? How can I help you? Whereas the avoidant partner will just avoid, and then the anxiety of the anxious person will skyrocket. And so just even reading books like that to like begin to recognize those patterns that you come through is sometimes like so eye-opening. And I think reading books like that is very, very important, because Nomza, you were saying that you have a family history of marriages falling apart, and so do I as well. I think most there's a number of divorces in my family extended as well, and I'm divorced too. And it was essentially so much learning has happened for me after getting divorced. Like I was such an anxious, quiet, shy person that I couldn't even pick up the phone and like call the pizza delivery person, because I would be like worried that I would screw up the pizza order. Like this is how like paralyzing my anxiety was. And now I'm like can speak on talk shows of people that I've never met across the world. So like I've come a long way from having like paralyzing anxiety of like, no, somebody else just phoned the pizza place because I don't want to, because I would be worried that I was going to screw up the order. And it's like it's amazing to think of like how those patterns can just like paralyze you in lots of ways too. And I think it's really important to start reading and start becoming consciously aware of your patterns, because that's the only way you're going to break them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for me, it's right now. There's a lot of change happening in my life and with my family right directly around me, and it's been interesting to see those patterns in other people, and then be able to have compassion for them, even though it's a bad pattern that they're in, is to identify that, okay, this is their pattern going back generations, and yeah, they're not even aware of it. And so I'll just give you an example. So right now the family farm on my wife's side has just been sold, and so my wife grew up there, my father-in-law like grew up there. The house was built in 1958. Spent his entire life, so my father-in-law specifically spent his entire life on this farm. And it's a lot right now, like to be, well, back in early in the spring it was selling the equipment, and now it's the sale of the house itself. And for him, his pattern is mad is sad. And so seeing him in moments getting mad and being able to take a step back and be like, okay, he's not mad at me. He's not mad at whatever, the stool that just tripped him or whatever it is. It's like he's going through a lot right now. This is something that I'm aware of, and so I can have compassion for him and for whoever else I see going through these patterns. So yeah, in my own journey, I guess not only identifying patterns in myself and giving myself space to, well, move through them and hopefully transcend the negative ones. But for people close to me is to identify those, see that, and then have compassion for them and do what I can to try and point it out in a tactful way. But again, unless someone's really wants to change and is ready to make a change and to come up against all that resistance, I mean, there's nothing I can do externally that's going to change them in that moment. So just trying to be, I guess, an example and just have compassion for people as they move through those maybe not so helpful patterns.
Yeah, I agree with Nick as well when you talk about the farm as well. I'm in a situation where my father died and my stepmom died, and that's where I grew up as well. We do have a house and a big farm as well, and my brother is basically saying he wants to move into out of the area, so that means that when he leave, we have to sell everything. But I'm basically like feeling sad that whenever he decides to move away from that place, there's gonna be some memories that we're gonna lose. But I'm trying to do what Amanda is doing instead of maybe selling the farm, maybe build a school there as a memory of my father. So I'm trying to do that. I'm thinking about it. That if everyone agrees, maybe to do that, because it's the memories that are there. We had so much amazing time with we lived with my grandma. My great grandmother died when she was 109. We lived there, and I was 7 years old or 8 years old, I can't remember, but I remember my memory with her very, very well. And my grandmother as well, her daughter, she lived there as well with us, and my dad and my stepmom. So it's all these memories that are there that basically I'm thinking like we're gonna lose those memories, but hopefully we won't. And Amanda, you were talking about alcohol. For me, basically, I don't drink, but I've never been affected when I go out. Basically, the reason why I don't drink is because of my friends and family when they drink. So I'm like, what is the point? I think I spend time basically evaluating things. So I'm like, what is the point if I drink alcohol and then I behave like these guys, and then the following day they can't remember what happened? So that's the reason why basically I don't drink. And also I did test the alcohol once. You know, when you drink juice, you can have some sugar out of it. So no one's like, that is disgusting. Why what is the joy in this thing? So I'm like, no, thank you. So I don't drink. And but when I see people that are drinking, I can see the pattern in my family. My grandmother drank alcohol, my dad drank alcohol, and my mom drinks special occasion, but she doesn't drink. She's a fake drinker anyway. And but us children, we don't drink. My younger sister drinks, and my younger brother, two of my siblings, they drink. It's 8 of us. It's 6 we don't drink. So I can see as well the pattern in my family with the alcohol as well, that there's some things that we do need to break those patterns and stuff. And also I see it with my friends as well. There are some patterns, like you see them, their families, they drink, and you see them, they drink as well. But some people, they do copy each other. It's like if I ask my siblings, why are you drinking, they're copying because somebody in the family drank, so they think it is the right thing to do. But there are some things where I used to see my uncles, basically they used to drink a lot, and alcohol is not good for you. I used to see how we used to do to them. It's not good for you. I have lots. I come from a very big family on my mother's side and my father's side. So they used to drink a lot, and sometimes the alcohol can destroy you. have had families that I have witnessed being destroyed by alcohol. So sometimes it's nice to look at your patterns, like what you do, and then and break those patterns. And also at the same time, I'm trying to teach my siblings, because for me, basically, I live a crazy life. Really, my life is really crazy. When I make decisions, I'm crazy. I played football and then I left football. I psychology. So basically, my career things are odd. So I'm trying to let my family know that you don't have to copy the things that I do, because you get lost in the moment. For me, basically, I like challenge. I do things that are like mentally that are challenging me. Like here in Gossip Talk shows, it gives me challenge each and every single day. When I'm sitting, I have to think. I have to use my mind to think. Even when I'm sad sometimes, or when I'm in the house, I don't fight anyone. If I say I know how to fight, even my spouse, I can't fight. That's why I cannot be in a relationship with someone that loves to fight. I think it's within me that I don't know how to fight. Basically, I get lost. If I'm angry with something, I better go out for a walk instead of staying in one place. So because if I fight that person, I just feel like it's wrong. So if I'm angry or upset with my spouse, I just go out for a walk, and then I come back, and we can either talk about it or things like that. And those are the patterns that I had to break as well. The patterns of families sweeping things under the carpet, not discussing about things. Like like my family, I've seen my family where they will have arguments and then they sweep things under the carpet and pretending as if everything is okay while things are not okay. So it's all those things, the pattern that I had to break when I took my psychology degree, that knowing that is not right. So basically what you see with me is what you get. If I'm upset with something, I just let it all out. Or if I feel that I want to cry, I just have to cry. If I'm sad, I'm sad, and there is no way that you can stop me. Or if I'm upset with you, I just let you know. I don't get upset anymore because actually I meditate too much. So if there's something that I see that somebody has not done, instead of me wanting that person to be a psychic or blaming them, I let them know how they wronged me, and then basically talk about things and making sure we are in a good place. And then it's up to them how they take my personality and my character, and or accept me for who I am. So those are the things that I had to break: the pattern of sweeping things under the carpet, and the pattern of not communicating with people properly. There's so many things that I had to look at my life and look at my lifestyle, and also the sickness. The sickness in my family. My sister had epilepsy, and then I had to look at the generation after generation, and then I had to break that. I was like, in my children or in my family, there's not going to be any, but it's hard work. So I had to read the Bible and read the scriptures and just break the sickness and break the chains of sickness, so the sickness does not get transferred to another generation, stay to that generation. But you need to work with somebody that knows how to do that, because sometimes you can get in trouble like I did. So because some things they are created, it's like the alcohol thing, it become a generational curse, generational, which means it's a spirit that you have to break. When people are basically alcoholic in the family, it's something that you have to break. But it's like using affirmation, and then using the scriptures and breaking it each and every day. You go to a moment where you have to break it each and every day. And then once you know that thing is broken, and the families, no one in that generation can have alcohol problems anymore. So those are the patterns that are hard to break. So Amanda, let's talk about business now. What are the patterns in business?
Well, actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because one of the reasons I picked this topic was because I also wrote a blog entry about it, but also it's one of the topics, like I said before, that's going to be covered in the course I'm running in the fall. But one of the things that the patterns that I recognized that popped up in my life were, like, one, the feeling of not being good enough, which was something that still consciously, like, you have to continuously work at. And I know lots of people who have that mindset, right? And it's becoming consciously aware of being able to switch that. And that's something that I struggled with for a really long time, and still it pops up throughout different times. But the other one was the feeling of scarcity. And so many people come from this poverty mindset, and I grew up in a family that came from a poverty mindset where everything was like, oh, that's too expensive, oh, it's too expensive to fix, we'll just put duct tape on it. And it's like, no, that just, like, the more you worry about poverty, the more that you bring more poverty into your life, and the more you vibrate abundance, the more abundance you'll bring into your life. And so essentially, what Louise Hay and what Bob Proctor talk about is how you essentially can bring abundance into your life by vibrating abundance and thinking from the mindset of abundance, and being able to look at so many different things in your life from an abundance mindset. And so instead of being like, oh, I don't have the money for that, just be like, look at all of the wonderful things that I already do have, and look at all of the abundance of love that I have in my life, or the abundance of friendships that I have in my life, or just the fact that I have food on the table and water. And Louise Hay, I love her morning meditation, where it talks about, like, 100 years ago, even kings and queens didn't have the luxury of indoor plumbing. And when you put that into perspective, you're like, whoa, I have indoor plumbing. 100 years ago, some of the richest people in the world did not have, nobody in the world had indoor plumbing. And now we all do. Like, how lucky are we to have indoor plumbing? And it's just like, that just completely shifts your mindset, right? To be like, I don't have to get up in the middle of the night and go to an outhouse outside. I can get up and go to the bathroom with a flush toilet. Like, how I'm so lucky for that. And when you shift your mindset to that, it's like amazing, right? Especially when you live in Canada like Nick and I do, and it gets to like -30. Couldn't imagine having to go outside and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, or any time for that matter, when it's that cold. But that just, like, abundance mindset is so important. And it's something that I never realized I had, that scarcity mindset, until I started reading about it and learning about it from different like therapy sessions, or also retreats, or books like Louise Hay's, and some of the books that Bob Proctor's written, or Wayne Dyer, and there's lots of newer people out there too, like Mike Dooley talks about this abundance mindset as well. And I think that that's something that's so important. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, yeah, I love all those guys you just listed, guys and girls. And I try and live that for sure every day, is, yeah, being grateful for what I do have, and staying in that, yeah, high vibing, abundant mindset for sure. But yeah, just as you were talking again, just thinking about how all these patterns are so unconscious, and we don't even realize that we're acting from a pattern, until you get to a point where whatever happens externally, but where you're able to identify that, oh, that's actually, yeah, just a pattern of mine. That's not actually me at my core. It's just something that I do because of my parents, or because of, well, going back generations, maybe even people you haven't even met. And so I think that's big to remember. For me, again, another one that I'm thinking of here is some of the stuff with parenting. Was a couple of things. So for me, my career, first of all, like the career I chose was completely unconscious. And I chose the same career that my dad did. And to take it another level, it was actually the same career that my dad did and hated. And I knew that. And then I still picked the same career as him, completely unconsciously, but probably in a place of trying to gain acceptance and love and pride and all of those things was probably what I was going for, but like so misguided, right? By picking the same career that someone didn't like thinking that was gonna give you acceptance. It's crazy. But again, those are those unconscious patterns that are just running in the background that we don't even give a second thought to until you get to a certain point where you've done some work and are digging into, I guess, some of those root causes that run your life. Because if you just run those patterns and don't ever think of them and don't ever do or try to do anything to interrupt and stop those negative ones, you're just going to repeat your history in your life of the negative things that have happened to you. It'll just keep happening, and you'll be passing that on to the future generations. And so, it's certainly not an easy thing to get into that place where you're interrupting and stopping those patterns, because just by nature, we love to be comfortable. We love the known and not having anything surprising or dynamic happening. We like that comfort. So it's certainly not easy to do, but it's so worth it, right? For not only for yourself, but for those around you, your kids, and everyone that comes into contact with you.
I like what you guys are saying. I have a note here, Amanda, like Amanda's fear. I have a note here that is on my desktop. Something food to I don't know if you can say it. No, you can't, because it's white. It says, how many people die every minute? Every time I have fear about something, I used to fear like poverty, what Amanda is saying, that what if I lose everything, I lose it all, what's gonna happen, or my children, or what if, so now I don't think that way anymore. I look at this note like abundance, Amanda and Nick, like what you were saying, and I look at this note, I say, how many people die every minute? Every time I have a negative thought, I have to go on Google and just type it, just basically to make sure that I am aware the numbers of people that die every minute, and how lucky I am to be sitting here and breathing. And then I have to tell myself that I don't have to worry about losing money. I don't have to worry about living in poverty. And if God has given me what He's given me, if I lose it, it's okay if I lose it. So before, I used to worry about what if things like that, what if things go wrong. So that is one of my patterns that I used to worry. But mind you, when I had the money, I couldn't find the house. It made me realize that actually money is not everything, because I had the money, but I couldn't find the house that I wanted, that I liked, that I wanted to live in. I couldn't find it. So then in that moment made me realize actually money is an energy that can help us to live, but there are times where basically you have it and there are problems that money wouldn't be able to solve them. Like if someone had cancer, you could go to any hospital that you want, expensive hospital, but you wouldn't be able to heal that person. But if you were to ask God, is healing mentally, mind, heal your mind, you could actually heal yourself. There are some people that have written testimonies that have been healed by cancer, from cancer. So that it gives me basically to get rid of my worries of living in poverty and looking at my life and basically thinking that I'm gonna lose it all. So That was one of my pattern, Amanda and Nick. That basically the fear of what if I do this, what if things go right and then things all go wrong, what's gonna happen and things like that. But now I just take each day as it comes and just being grateful that I am alive and I'm living. Or sometimes I just try to focus on the energy of helping somebody else. And it's not something that I used to. It's not something that was basically I was used to until I actually watched this pastor again, and it was like, if you were to see somebody and they needed your help, would you ask them to pay you, or would you actually give them time, 1 hour, to actually help you, to help them? And so those are the things, the patterns that I'm trying to basically break, living in fear of worrying. Like we come here at Ngozi talk shows. I know that there's part of me that Ngozi talk shows is gonna be big one day. We're gonna reach millions and millions of people, and I'm okay with it now because of my note. I'm okay with it. I basically have to be grateful that I don't fear Ngozi talk shows gets bigger. I don't fear nothing. How many people that die every minute? They don't get a chance to do the things that I do, that we do each and every day. So fear, I'm not worried about that fear. That used to worry me, and it doesn't worry me anymore. I just go with the flow. And the patterns as well of making sure that my children go to school. I educate my children. I'm making sure that uh, I look at my grandfather. His children were very, very educated, which is my dad. My dad was very, very educated. So I'm like, I need to keep that in the family. But if they feel they don't want to go to college, you don't have to go to university or college. But if they feel that they want to read books by starting their own business or doing something, as long as they are doing something, so to me, I'm okay with it. So I'm happy to basically stand by them and pushing them, making sure they are okay in life. Because with life, you have to be prepared. One of my daughter basically shocked me yesterday. She goes, "Mommy, I want to go to London." And I was like, okay, I don't think I can make that decision on my own. I need your dad. So I'll speak to your dad. And he goes, okay, we need to talk about how to approach dad. Because as you know, I'm a psychologist. I'm like, no, you are not. Because as you know that she goes, you are a psychologist. That means I am, because I'm learning from you. So that means I am. So this is how you need to approach dad. So don't ask him and say, oh, Hope wants to go to London. Are you okay with it? So you need to use psychology, and don't tell him, but just put the message like this. So I'm like, seriously? So it's like, okay, that's why they say what we do, it affect our children. So I've learned something yesterday. Honestly, my daughter shocked me. And she's like, we are psychologists. I'm like, no, there's only one person that's studying psychology. You are at school in year 11. So you are not a psychologist yet. So over to you. Did you guys look at the time?
Yeah, I wanted to touch base really quickly on what Nick said about getting uncomfortable, and that we don't like to be uncomfortable, but that's the only way that we're going to change. And that's the only way we're going to break those patterns and those paradigms that we've been stuck with, is we have to like consciously begin to change them so that they become then a subconscious pattern, right? So in order to make your pattern different, you have to really like be consciously aware that that's something that you want to change, and then when you do, you'll be able to stick with it. Because so often people are like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet, but then they'll stay on a diet for like 2-3 days and then they fall off the diet right away. And it has nothing to do with their knowledge and their ability to do it. It's all about their paradigm. They'll just keep going back into eating what they were eating before. Or even if they follow the diet through to the end, and then once the diet's over, they just start eating what they were eating again before, and then they put all of the weight back on. So it's a complete shift in what you do, and you have to be super prepared to not go back to the other way that you were behaving before. And so much of our behavior is the thoughts that we think. And so if you want to change your behavior, you really need to change what's happening inside your mind. And tell yourself, if you're telling yourself I'm not good enough, just like say like stop it right now. and go back to and go into like what you are good enough at, or what like you add value no matter what to this world and to the people around you. And keep telling yourself that, because each and every one of us has a gift to give, and so much to give to the world. And when you essentially get back what you give out to the world. And if you are giving out negativity, you will get negativity back. If you're giving out love and abundance and prosperity and kindness and compassion, then that's what you'll get back from the world as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd say celebrate those wins when you identify a pattern and when you've stopped that negative self-talk or whatever it is. Celebrate that. Even if it took you a day, a week, or whatever, you were in that loop, but then you caught yourself and got out of it, is celebrate that and be proud of yourself, because that's where it all starts, is identifying those and then stepping in and doing something. And then just know it's not always going to be easy at all. Actually, quite the opposite. And it's not like one day you're like, oh, I've done it. I've gotten rid of all of my patterns and I'm all good. Like, that's not how it works at all. It's a process for sure. But just, yes, stay committed to it, and just stay in the moment more, and just, celebrate those wins. And then they just compound, it feels like, and things start to shift in your life externally when your internal world shifts. So stick with it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Get uncomfortable and just learn to celebrate, like what Nick and Amanda are saying. Learn to celebrate those little things that we do in life, and with the things that we take for granted, and not to compare our lives with somebody else as well, because I look at myself like 12 years ago and today. It's been a step by step. The growth is never happened. It didn't happen overnight. It's something that I had to learn. It's something that I had to actually accept myself for who I am, and the patterns, work on the bad habit, work on the good ones, and embrace basically that learning journey and the skills. And we grow out of all those things when you embrace who you are and not comparing your life with somebody else. And it's an amazing journey. But some people, their lives fall apart because they look at Nomsa and they're like, why is she able to do things that I can't do? But what they don't realize is Nomsa had to do so many things in life. Sometimes I smash books when things are not going well. Sometimes I smash pillows when things are not going well. I have a stick. Something I put God on the table, like have a normal court with God and say, God, you say anything I ask in your name. But I'm asking right now, I'm asking for healing. I'm asking for this. Why hasn't it happened? And then I realized, actually, I just have to believe. I have to trust. So you just have to do you. Never ever compare your life with anybody else. Just do you, what works for you, and just learn from the people that have just been there and have done it. Like Amanda, she's a teacher, she's an author, and Nick was a policeman, completely in different industry, and now he has a designer clothing line. So can you imagine that, basically from a completely different industry, that you can be who you want to be and break those patterns, whatever is going on in your life. Only you can know your story. and only you can evaluate your story. Anything else you guys want to say before we leave? Nick? Okay. So we are here at Ngozi Talk Shows Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. And please, guys, Ngozi Talk Shows family on YouTube, watch our video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Live with grace, everyone. And please, if you need to find your own voice, lead from within. Get in touch with Nick, get in touch with Amanda, follow them on social media. Go on YouTube. There's so much on YouTube. These guys, Nick is, you can follow Nick's story when he decided that he's going to be the man he was born to be. He basically decided to go make a video, and in that video, you can learn how basically to be the person that you want to be instead of just being like everybody else. So he decided that I am Nick, I'm unique, and I'm gonna do me. So you can go and find his video on YouTube, find him on YouTube and follow him, follow the guy, follow the woman, Amanda, and follow Nomsa as well, please. God bless and live with grace.